We are so honored to be joined by Mr. Vice President Mike Pence. Thank you so much, sir, for inviting us down here to Washington and talking to us live here on Fox and Friends.
You bet, Aisnley. Welcome to the White House.
Thank you. Yesterday, you were in the Rose Garden, just right behind this building, and the president has announced that he was pulling out of the Paris Accord. Why is that a good move?
Well, what the world witnessed yesterday again was an American president putting America first. President Donald Trump on the campaign trail had called into account an agreement that really put an extraordinary burden on the American economy, while allowing some countries around the world like China and India to literally go a decade or more without any accountability for reducing CO2 emissions. Required billions of dollars of investment by American taxpayers. In a very real sense, it was a transfer of wealth from the most powerful economy in the world to other countries around the planet. And yesterday, President Trump made it very clear that we're withdrawing from the Paris Accord. We're putting the American worker, the American economy first. But you also heard him leave the door open to renegotiating a better arrangement, to maybe re-entering the Paris Accord under new terms and new conditions. But I think what's refreshing is to have a president in the Oval Office who's not only keeping his word to the American people, but I think, as you see, on a broad range of issues, whether it's rebuilding our military, whether it's seeing the tremendous growth in this economy, President Donald Trump gets up every day fighting for the American people, and it's already making an extraordinary difference in our security and our prosperity.
Well, then why all the hysterics from the left? I listened to the press conference, and if you listen to how unfair it is for the United States, we're going to lose $3 trillion in GDP, 6.5 industrial jobs, families will have less of an income, and the world, we will have to end our coal production. Yet it does benefit China. It does benefit India. Right. So why it doesn't seem fair. And we saw Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, on our air with Neil Cavuto right after it, and he said this is not an agreement. This is making, we have to sacrifice, the United States does. So my question is, why did President Obama, why did his administration think this agreement was okay for America?
Well, it's long been a goal of the liberal left in this country to advance a climate change agenda. You saw it back in the days of the Kyoto Protocol. President Bush actually submitted that to the Senate. It was rejected 95-0. We heard some of the same apocalyptic predictions when Kyoto was rejected, and yet from 2000 to 2014, because of American innovation and because of new technologies, we saw an 18% reduction in CO2 emissions in this country alone. So we've demonstrated real leadership, we've demonstrated real progress, but for some reason or another, this issue of climate change has emerged as a paramount issue for the left in this country and around the world. And through Kyoto, through President Obama's cap and trade agenda, and then in the last year of his administration, to have America saddled in an international agreement in the Paris Accord, I think put a real burden on our economy and on our people. It was a bad deal for America, and as the president said so memorably yesterday, he was elected to represent Pittsburgh, not Paris. Yeah. I just have to tell you, it is so refreshing to have a president who just stands without apology for the American people, for the American economy, and for America's interest in the world first.
What was your reaction to what John Kerry said? He said more kids are going to get asthma this summer because we're pulling out of this agreement.
Well, it's disappointing to hear the hot rhetoric, but I have to tell you, when we first met, I was the governor of a Midwestern state. And the truth of the matter is that American industry in the heartland and all across America depends on fossil fuels and coal-burning power plants, and what our companies have seen, what our families have seen, is rising electricity and the cost of utilities in this country. It's put a real burden. We've seen jobs leaving this country, and what President Trump said yesterday is we're going to develop the resources of this country in an environmentally responsible way. We're going to drive American growth and opportunity all across this nation. And we will lead in the world, not follow the world. And one of the things that I've been most amused by, and when I was in Europe in February representing the administration, and to see the president in that extraordinary trip from the Middle East to Europe last week, is To hear some people questioning decisions this administration is making, I see what's happening is the world is seeing that we have a president again who is embracing his role as leader of the free world. He's leading Europe back to a stronger commitment to counterterrorism. He's leading our NATO allies to live up to their commitments to our common defense, and in withdrawing from the Paris Accord, and in offering to renegotiate it in a way that's more fair, more equitable to our economy and to every economy in the world. Again, you see President Donald Trump is being leader of the free world.
He ran on that. He also ran on keeping us safe, our borders safe. And the administration last night has asked the Supreme Court to revive the 6-country travel ban. Is this the only way to get it through?
Well, first, I think the American people can tell that President Donald Trump has no higher priority than the safety and security of the people of this country. He's taken bold and decisive action, asserting an executive order to pause immigration from countries that have been compromised by terrorism or don't have the systems in place that we can be confident that when people apply to come here, that they don't represent a threat to our families and our communities. The efforts I think the President's taken and Homeland Security has taken on our borders has been dramatic, and we've seen not only criminal illegal immigrants being removed from our cities, but we've seen more than a 60% decline in illegal immigration on our southern border. I think the American people are heartened by that, but equally frustrated by decisions in courts that call into question whether the President of the United States has the ability to control who comes into this country. The ability to come into the United States of America is a privilege, not a right. And in the initial executive order, we identified 7 countries that did not have the safeguards that we could be confident that people applying to come here were who they said they were. We amended that. We worked closely with our ally in Iraq to put systems in place that we would be confident that people applying to come here would not represent a threat to our people. But we're going to continue to drive this pause forward, advance what the President calls policies of extreme vetting, and we remain very confident that when this matter reaches the Supreme Court of the United States, they're going to recognize the right of the President in the Constitution and in the statutes of this country to control immigration in a way that puts the security of our country first.
Well, we don't want a Manchester here in the United States. You have children, I have a child. They're targeting kids at this concert. And we were talking right before you sat down. You said that the President had called the President of Afghanistan because terrorists targeted an ice cream shop in Afghanistan. What did he say to the President of Afghanistan?
Well, our hearts break for the loss of life in Kabul. The President reached out with compassion to President Ghani and expressed his support and our prayers for the terrorist attack that took place there. And of course, Manchester continues to just break the hearts of people across this country and across the world. But in both cases, what we see, Aisnley, is a grim reminder of the ruthlessness of those who threaten our country and threaten our allies. And it's the reason why the President has taken such decisive action to control who might come into this country, decisive action at the border, enforcing our laws, a recent funding bill to begin to make a down payment on rebuilding our military. You know, I spoke at the Naval Academy graduation just a little more than a week ago, and I stood up and I said to those midshipmen, Navy and Marines who are graduating, that they could be confident that they have a commander-in-chief who will have their back. And the ovation was overwhelming. I said that this is a president who's going to rebuild our military, restore the arsenal of democracy, and give our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard finally the resources and training that they deserve to keep our nation safe and come home safe to their families. That's what the American people elect a president to do first and foremost, and it's what President Trump is about every day.
Thank you for remembering our military. Your son is a Marine, so I know that meant a lot to hear those words and for you to be there for them. You know, people around the country, even Democrats, are saying they're sick of Russia, Russia, Russia. They want to talk health care. They want to see health care reform, repeal and replace, and they want to see this tax reform. You served our country as a congressman before you're governor and then also vice president. So you know what it's like within the walls of Congress. How are we going to get the Republicans to unite?
Well, I think we've made great progress this year. I mean, the truth is, because of the president's leadership and strong support in the Congress, we've been able to enact legislation that's rolled back an avalanche of regulations that came out of the Obama administration. It means 14 different bills passed by the House and Senate, signed by the president, that have alleviated some $18 billion in costs of regulation on businesses. I mean, you saw the Dow close at a record level yesterday. You saw a payroll report that more than 250,000 new jobs were created in May, more than 1 million since Inauguration Day. I think that's all a result of the policies that the Congress has been sending to the president's desk, and he's been championing and advancing. But I also think it's a vote of confidence in this president's leadership and his ability to continue to move forward on repealing and replacing Obamacare and passing what we believe will be one of the largest tax cuts in American history. And despite whatever the rest of the media across the country might be focused on any given day, I will tell you, we're very encouraged by the progress that the Senate is making to do its part to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're very encouraged by the progress that's being made on tax reform. The president is calling on the Congress this year to do an infrastructure bill to rebuild America's roads and bridges and airports in a way that will reflect the most powerful economy in the world. So whatever it is that Washington's focused on at any given time, I promise you President Donald Trump and this Congress are going to stay focused on delivering on the promises made to the American people, and you can see it's already making a difference.
What is your message to the media?
I think our message to the media is just, is focus on the results. I mean, in just a short few months, it's humbling for me to be a part of an administration led by a president that has ISIS on the run. We're driving ISIS out of Iraq. It literally overrun our ally in Iraq, and we're on the verge of not only driving them out of Mosul, but driving them out of Iraq, and we'll drive them out of existence. We see border integrity reestablished, recent legislation that provided resources to reinforce our borders. We're taking dangerous illegal immigrants off of our streets. Law enforcement personnel at every level are standing tall. We see an economy that's more confident today than it's literally been in some measures in decades. We see companies investing in America, creating jobs in America, that we're actually making plans to build factories and create jobs outside this country. And we see a Supreme Court of the United States and a new justice to the Supreme Court of the United States who will keep faith with the God-given liberties that are enshrined in our Constitution. You look at those are all promises made and promises kept by President Donald Trump, and the results speak for themselves. And my hope is that as time goes on, some in the media will start to focus as much as the American people are on those good results.
What grade would you give the president thus far?
You know what? I'd give him an A+ for effort. I'd give him an A+ for results. And look, what's startling to some of the elites in this country and around the world about President Donald Trump is he's doing exactly what he said he would do. But to know him is to know that President Donald Trump is a man of his word. I mean, literally, he gets up every day and turns his face like flint against the wind and says, what are we going to do today to make America safe again, to make America prosperous again, to make America great again? And it's the greatest honor of my life to be Vice President to President Donald Trump.
That's wonderful. We asked viewers to write in their questions. I'm going to read a few of them. Phil says, what is the status of the wall, and when will it be completed? Well, we're very pleased that in the short-term funding bill that was just passed, the President insisted on $1.5 billion to continue to reinforce our borders, and we're absolutely committed to build a wall. And when the next round, the full year funding bill comes, you can expect that President Trump, our entire administration, are going to work closely with members of Congress. We're going to get the funding, and we're going to build the wall. Gil wants to know, are more campaign-style rallies